Okay, so to get us started, the big debate, it focuses on the numbers for the season so far, and in particular, Celtic's phenomenal goal-scoring exploits. Oh's goal on Saturday that you've mentioned there, Paul, it wasn't just his own debut goal for Celtic, it was also the 100th goal we've scored across all competitions this season. So what we'll do first, we'll look at some of the numbers and discuss just how far we think this team can take their goals record between now and June. So 102 goals for the season, 100th was Oh's, and then we've obviously got Rio Hatate and Matt O'Reilly have scored. So 102 goals this season across 36 fixtures. In the Scottish Premiership, James, as we discussed last week, 78 goals. In the League Cup, 10 goals. Scottish Cup, another 10. And in the Champions League, definitely less so, 4 goals there. Just as a separate stat, James, since coming back from the World Cup break, we've scored 40 goals in just 13 games during that time. And it just shows the incredible appetite of the Celtic side to score goals at this moment in time.
Yeah, and it's just the way Ange has set it up. I said earlier on, relentless is the word I keep using. But when you've got someone breathing down your neck in just about every position now, in fact, I can't really think of anyone who doesn't have someone that's challenging them for their place, it creates that positive competition, a virtuous circle where everyone's striving, and we want the goals to come from all over the team, and the way you're going to catch the manager's eye and underline that you deserve to be in the starting 11 is by scoring goals. So it's a great atmosphere, a great culture that Ange set up that's leading to us getting the rewards.
Yeah. Paul, do you want to try and fill in the missing blank here from the following stat? You ready? Celtic hit 5 goals on Saturday night against St Mirren, meaning we've now scored 4 goals or more in blank games this season. How many games do you think it is?
Well, let's go at least, I think maybe at least 7.
Definitely at least 7. I thought you were going to talk. I thought you were going to go, right. I don't know, 50?
I'll go for 12.
Yeah, you're close enough at 12. It's 14 games. We talk a lot about stats, James, when we're doing the post-matches for the various games, and it feels like this is a stat I'm updating almost weekly just now since coming back from the break. I think maybe 4 or 5 times Celtic have scored at least 4 goals. Most recently, of course, on Saturday night. And a big part of what Celtic are doing just now comes down to the fitness levels of the players. And Andrew was speaking with Gordon Strachan about this post-match. If you lads have seen that clip, did you catch them on Saturday night?
Brilliant.
That was good.
It was great fun.
I'd watch that every Saturday for an hour if they want to commission it.
Do you know, if you could subscribe to something like that, you definitely would. It was like, I spoke about it, it was just 2 wily old football campaigners just shooting the breeze. It was great, wasn't it?
Aye, I liked it whenever he started asking about what do you do? How come Gavin's lost 5 stone?
Yeah.
Aye, it was great.
They're good fun.
Refreshing.
So Strachan described this Celtic side as super fit at this moment in time and asked Ange specifically about how important that was to his team. Ange replied, "It's something we pride ourselves on. I know a lot of people talk about our football, but in terms of the lads themselves, they work so hard on that part of their game." Paul, have you noticed a big difference in how fit this Celtic side seemed to be, and how important do you think as to how Ange plays?
Well, Celtic play for 90 minutes plus, right? So they are full pelt the full time. You look at watch games and you see guys like Maeda chasing balls down into corners in the last 5 minutes of the game, always a threat. We've got so many goals that come late on in the game as well, and you know, I think it's also one of the reasons that Celtic come from behind as well when we've had adversity in the campaign. You think, see Gordon Strachan was at one point seen as a kind of revolutionary player because of how fit he kept himself and his diet, and that's back in the 90s and the late 90s. That was different. But this Celtic team, you know, is a new breed again on the players who we consider as being fit in the past. Celtic have always had that last gasp ability to go forward and get that goal. But I do feel that the Ange, it just seems as though it's instilled. There's a fitness about them. The players are running down. You look at the pressing game that they play from the fullbacks. So I think it has to be a real key area in Celtic's success is just how fit they are. And you know what? And it's shown in the results, and it's shown in the way that we've been grinding them out.
Yeah, it's a good point on Strachan himself, James. I think he played till he was 40.
Sure
I think was it at Coventry maybe where he become player manager. Yeah. And clearly, as you say, Paul, it was a bit revolutionary at the time. It wasn't the norm, and I think when Arsene Wenger came into Arsenal, that's when things started to take another step in that direction. You know, chat about 24-hour athletes. And I think various guys didn't last long under Wenger at all when he brought in all the sports science. And even fast forward to relatively recently at Celtic when you had the Lee Griffiths tea cake kind of stuff. And I know that's a bit of fun, but it wasn't very professional. And then Ronnie Dyler tried to introduce good diets, and it seemed a few senior pros weren't happy. No chips in the canteen, no tomato sauce, all that kind of stuff. Now fast forward to what we're seeing under Ange, and it's just extreme levels of fitness. And I don't think you get into this side under Ange unless you're supremely fit first and foremost, regardless of how good a player you are.
Yeah, I think Rodgers and Ange have built on the foundations that Dial put down, and saying these things. And absolutely, could you imagine Griffiths turning up overweight, ex body fat, and saying, "How am I not getting a game?" Fine, why you're not getting a game?
Yeah.
Just not going to happen.
We used to see like this. I mean, it's the culture that Ange has instilled in Celtic, and I think that's one of the main things as well. That is different. You don't see or hear of as often Celtic players out on a Tuesday night. It's not the same way as it maybe had been with football. Possibly depends when the deals are on. I'm not too sure. I don't really go out myself anymore. But I think it's the whole culture at Celtic. It's very different.
Yeah, I think there's no doubt about that. Slightly separate, James, to the fitness question, but what's your take on the 5 subs rule? So obviously Celtic played to perfection under Ange, and with the squad we've got, there's no doubt that it's a huge advantage. Do you think it's slightly unfair on other teams across the league?
Oh, as a kind of a parallel point, I think we've got to get away from this defeatist, we can't do it, we're just wee poor Hibs or whatever kind of thing. Go and look at Bodo, go and look at Twente, go and look at teams with similar budgets to yours across Europe and see what they're doing. And they're filling their bench with, whether it's youth or young signings, whatever it may be, they're actually addressing their problems instead of just going boo-hoo. It's a problem for us when we're playing Real Madrid. It's a problem for them when they're playing us. So no doubt we get an advantage from it, but it gives them a chance to bring on someone as well and change their dynamic. So they've got to see the opportunities in it, not the negatives.
Yeah, he's a harsh man, Paul, isn't he?
He sure is, but that's what makes him the man he is today.
I mean, so to push back on your point though, I think it's a challenge in the first place for, you mentioned Hibs, Hearts, Aberdeen, whoever else it may be. It's hard to get an 11 that can go toe to toe with Celtic, and they might manage to do that. And then after 60 minutes of football, and we'll get to some of these stats just shortly, but after 60 minutes of football, Celtic are then just cranking it up a notch again, and we generally make 3 subs at that moment in time and then a couple later on, and it's very, very hard to deal with.
But then maybe your tactics need to change at that point where you've given your tank. So St Mirren gave their tank and they were brilliant for those 70, 75 minutes. But if they know, they're going to be chasing the game the whole time, then something's got to change in their tactics at 70, 75 minutes, whether they go long or very defensive or extra guys at the back and just try and tuck it in for the remainder. They can't just play the same way and be as open as they were when they're tired. That's just, I'm not a football manager, but I know that.
They're damned if they do, damned if they don't though. So, they could take the approach, I tell you what we'll do during the 90 or the 60, we'll save some energy because we know they're going to change it. And then you might just get run over the top anyway.
No, but you can refresh the energy from the bench. They've got 5 subs from the bench they can do to refresh their energy if they're going to be going on a kind of 2 banks of 5 in the last 15 minutes. There's always a way at any level of football. So I just don't accept the defeatist kind of talk.
It's not your problem and you don't care, do you?
No, I think if managers and other teams start addressing that, we get a more competitive league and we get harder games and we get more enjoyable games. And I appreciate the budget disparity, I really do. But small teams have beat big teams. Smaller teams are beating bigger teams in Holland, in Norway, in Denmark, all across Europe. So why don't we see more of that from our smaller club managers rather than just saying, we can't do it?
I think any one of these clubs in a one-off can beat the bigger sides. And
I mean in the
already this season.
Celtic will lose to St Mirren, now and then, but over the piece, PSV and Ajax are going to win the league in Holland. Benfica will win it in Portugal and all these things.
Twente have been separating them for quite a bit. The Dutch league is probably something we should be looking to, or certainly if I was involved with a smaller club, I'd be looking to look at Bodo, look at things like that. Where is the ambition for real youth? Maybe there's something structurally needs to change from the SFA side, that it goes towards an American draft system, that teams like that get a bit of a first pick. I'd be wide open to that.
Yeah, maybe, as would I. Maybe just a bit of creative or revolutionary thinking might come into the game.
Yeah, but I don't think just going, can I do it? That doesn't help anyone.
Yeah, I've got to be honest, I do think at this moment in time it's an unfair advantage for Celtic and to an extent Rangers, given the bigger budgets. And the 5 sub rule, I think, was initially brought in during COVID at times when squads were really stretched and just to allow a bit more support. And they've kept it in, and it's hugely to Celtic's advantage. And I'm not moaning about Celtic having an advantage, but I do feel that's exactly what it is.
Well, the 5 subs I think is helping Celtic because the quality Celtic have on the bench and the fact that we can play, we've got such a strong squad in depth. But you look back to maybe a year beforehand, or just over maybe 18 months ago, when Celtic's bench, I don't think there was that great quality that was on the bench at that time. We were filling with a lot of B players, a lot of guys that were on their way elsewhere. But then after the influx of the Japanese players came in the January, that changed how Celtic's whole squad was. And I think that now you're looking at it and going, I'd take him in my first team. He could be starting, but then the guys that are coming on, they're really proven themselves. Like O'Reilly's got a goal, Hatate scored a goal, Turnbull usually scores when he comes on as well. I'm glad O scored.
Yep.
So yeah, there is that disparity then, but it wasn't. I don't think it was always there when we introduced the 5 subs rule.
I think it's highlighted right now because of just how effectively Celtic have spent. Ange has, masterminded this whole system where we've now got 20, 22 players, any one of whom could start a game on any given Saturday and you'd be happy enough with it. Paul, you're absolutely spot on, with guys like Uragide and Liam Shaw and, with all due respect, Adam Montgomery and Owen Moffat, all these, various kids and stuff like that who were the only options, back there during Ange's first season. Now you'd be happy with anybody, whether O decides to start a game, David Turnbull, whoever else in the defence. It's just it's a mind-blowing position for Celtic to be in, and it's such a huge plus at this moment in time.
And that's one of the reasons with Giakoumakis that I'm kind of was disappointed that he decided that he wanted to go his own way because he wanted more starting time. And I think that there's, from what I can see within the Celtic squad, there is more of a squad mentality, and they are together. They are the team. The squad is the team, and I feel like Giakoumakis at that point wanted to, his cryptic TikTok messages and everything else.
Yeah,
I feel that did upset the apple cart, and you can see why Ange's like, well, you know what, you're not seeing the bigger picture.
but
You can go.
I think GG was the right signing for the right time. We
Definitely.
absolutely needed him at first season.
He did great.
But I think it was quite evident early on that he did want that time, and it's hard because you want strikers to be arrogant and slightly individualistic. It's the nature of the beast. A couple of strikers here, goalie, striker. Nature of the beast, but that's not how Ange's teams work. I mean, Kyogo is the most selfless striker I've ever seen in my life, picking up litter and all sorts. But as soon as it became apparent that Giakoumakis did want that and was an individual, it was already over.
Yeah. Football's never been as much a squad game as it is right now. Back in the day, it was just your 11. Then it was your 11, and you could replace a goalie if you get injured. Then a couple of subs throughout, the years beyond that. And now you've got the full use of 5 subs. And I suppose that's a challenge, James, isn't it? It's to see how we can now adapt this into Europe. We're showing at this moment in time how strong we are domestically. The big challenge will come, all going well, in next season's Champions League, when we've got the chance to utilise the 5 subs there against the Real Madrids and teams of that ilk, and see just how we fare. I'd like to put a wee bit of time just now on the emphasis that Celtic themselves place on starting and finishing games really strongly. And I'm going to highlight that just through some of the stats here, which I've broken down by competition. So in the Scottish Premiership, we've played 25 games, scoring 78 goals so far. That's 3.12 goals per game. In 15 of those games, we've scored goals in the first 15 minutes. And in 16 of the games, we've scored in the last 15 minutes. So we're kind of topping and tailing. Some games we're doing it in both, scoring early, scoring late. Just as a bit of additional information, at this stage last season, league-wise, do you know how many goals we'd scored? Have a crack. Your guessing's been on point so far.
It's been alright, isn't it? I'll go for 64.
Yeah, I was going to go 65, so something similar.
Fair bit less, 54. So we've scored 78 this time around and 24 goals less this time last season. So it's quite a remarkable difference there. In the League Cup, Celtic have played 3 games and scored 10 goals. So that's 3.33 goals per game. And in all 3 of our League Cup games, we've scored in the last 15 minutes. In the Scottish Cup, we've only played 2 games, scoring 5 in each. So an average of 5 per game. And in both of those games, we've scored in the last 15 minutes. The stats then take a dip, as you'd expect, for the Champions League. So of the 6-game campaign, we only scored 4 goals, so an average of 0.67 goals per game. And we only scored in the opening 15 minutes in one of the games. That was the home one to Shakhtar Donetsk. And we only scored in the last 15 minutes in one game. That was away to Real Madrid. And it was essentially a consolation goal by Jota. Great goal as it was. So it's quite easy to see here the big difference when it comes to European competition, and we know that Ange is continuing to look for improvements in that area. But for now though, James, domestically, some of those numbers are frightening, aren't they? What do you think of that first and last 15 minute stat?
It's Ange all over. That's how he sets them up to come out the blocks fast, and he sets them up to finish strong and to lose no energy until the final whistle. What you're seeing is the embodiment of what he said in his very first training session for Celtic, and it's a lot of managers come in and they say things, or they go to a press conference and they say
Michael
something.
Beale.
Exactly. Yeah. I'm going to
Less said the better.
Say less. they come in and they make a lot of talk and stuff, and it's all fluff. It doesn't really mean anything. It meant something. I mean, I think by the time Ange landed and got the training jersey on, people were quite excited about him. You saw that video and it was like, oh wait a minute, this is going to be something special. And he showed straight away that it wasn't bluster. So that's all it is. He's doing what he said he was going to do.
Yeah, he came in with a philosophy, and he issues that philosophy in everything that he does.
Yeah,
I think a lot of folk heard the philosophy and were just waiting for him to fail, and it's clearly not worked out for those people. It's a clear indication of how he sets up his teams, Paul. You can score a few goals early and a few goals late by chance or by luck at times. The patterns that have now emerged this season, it's very much by design, isn't it?
Yeah. Bertie old years ago said, it's not are you going to win, it's how many are you going to win by. And that was the Celtic philosophy of that.
I thought you were going to do your Bertie Old impression there.
No, you're going to win, it's how many goals you were going to win by. But Ange really brings it in, and that's the frightening thing. If you're up against Celtic, it's right from the start. Celtic are putting on pressure. You have some teams that actually try and take it to Celtic early on and from kick-off, but very, very quickly it's proven that Celtic are actually then will wear you down, score a goal, and they create so many chances as well. Celtic, that's the thing, is it's not like we're getting one goal out of nothing. You're talking about goals you can maybe score because of chance. Celtic are constantly creating chances, and actually have been unfortunate not to have scored more goals, I think, this season. With the amount of times the post has been struck as well. It's the Celtic philosophy. It's continuous, it's relentless, it's non-stop.
Yeah. What was really interesting, going back to that chat, James, between Ange and Gordon Strachan, was when Ange was talking quite specifically about the fact that if St Mirren, or anybody indeed, are expending all that energy for 60 minutes, something's got to give beyond that. I think Ange was quick to credit St Mirren with how they approached the game. You and I credited them. I think they had a real decent go at it. But I think teams at this moment in time, they do not know whether to stick or twist. They kind of can't win either way. But to be fair to St Mirren, they did come at Celtic. They pressed far higher. Gordon Strachan spoke about how teams usually wait till Celtic get to 35 yards from goal and then engage. St Mirren were very different. They were engaging Celtic even across the halfway line at different times and making it a real challenge. But you cannot do that without losing energy. And so long as Celtic are composed on the ball, and that was Ange's message, keep your composure, keep playing the ball, keep doing the right things, and the chances will come. And I suppose it's no coincidence that we're then scoring so late in games. I mean, I think 4 of the 5 goals, James, came in the last 15, 20 minutes. So tells its own story, doesn't it?
It does. And, you've been following Celtic a long time, and, as that clock gets towards 80 over the years, you're going, my best is slipping away. I am extremely relaxed on 75, 80 minutes. Remember Aberdeen, Callum McGregor? And I genuinely wasn't worried. Ange says, you just keep moving the ball and moving yourself, and the gaps will come. And that proved against Aberdeen, and it proved against St Mirren. So again, it's discipline and it's philosophy, and they're following it. What I said, I think it was after the St Johnstone game, or it was St Johnstone game, the players have bought into it so much they can do it without the manager's instruction. They're now seeing things within the game and saying, right, we don't need instruction or to be told. We can play in a slightly different fashion where we're staying within our philosophy of how we play in football to have a higher chance of success. And I think that's a real departure for any football team when you start to operate the manager's philosophy within yourselves.
Yeah, I think Ange had a bit of work to do when he came in initially in terms of a bit of a hearts and minds campaign. He had to win over the players, he had to win over his own support staff, he had to win over the fans. But a bit of success does a lot for you. You win the League Cup first of all. People realise there's something to this. Obviously, he's followed it up with the league, and now we're seeing the fruits of all of Ange's labour in terms of some of the results. And I think exactly that, James. I think the players have just fully bought into it, and they fully believe in his methods, don't they?
Yeah, I think when he comes in at first, he was coming in from a Celtic team that were on the decline. Edouard, as much as I loved Edouard, was such a lazy striker at times when he wasn't engaging and when he wasn't on the ball or getting chances, and I felt Edouard was quite huffy at times. And then as he starts to bring in his own players, and you look at Kyogo, the work rate of Kyogo is just mental before he even scores a goal. And he has had to work on players and get them. And I think what I really like to see as well is how Johnston's coming into the side too. I don't feel as though I miss Juranovic the way I thought I might. I think Johnston's a very effective player. I don't think he's as effective just yet as being a inverted fullback, but he certainly comes into the side, has the same driving philosophies that I win. Greg Taylor's been an absolute revelation under him. See if Greg Taylor, I think, had been under Lennon for another year, he'd have faded away, I think, as a player.
Could have pitched up at Aberdeen or something. No disrespect to Aberdeen, but his path might have been
totally
out of Celtic.
Whereas I think Taylor's been one of our players of the year this season, and he's been excellent. And he embodies, I think, what Ange is doing. And I think that Ange has that touch of working with players, putting his philosophy into them, allowing them to express themselves as well. And it's great. He's turned around the club from in so many ways.
I think it says a lot about what Ange has done and what he continues to do, that you can lose such a key player in Juranovic from last season and such a key player and goal scorer in Giakoumakis, and we're all right about it. Nobody's getting upset. We've all accepted this is just football, guys. Players move on. Whereas back in recent years, if you lose one of your key players, all hell breaks loose. It's nothing like that. You're just so confident in how he's managing the process.
You look at when Dembele went, and there was talk of Dembele going before he went and all that stuff. When he went, it was devastating because you're going, what's the cover? And no harm, but it was Mikey Johnson was the cover.
How dare you?
So, sorry, Dino. Big fan of Mikey Johnson in the corner there. But, the height you had to drop from Dembele to what was next. Now it's first and foremost, don't worry about it, because Dembele's getting replaced in a day or two, if not a couple of days before. And there's also other players around that can play the role. Dyson, for example, stepping into number 9 there, when Kyogo goes off. So it's credit there has to go to Ange, obviously, but obviously to Mark Lawwell and Michael Nicholson. It's now a team game off the park as much as it is off it.
Yeah, it's a good way to put it. Going back to some of the numbers around the season. So as I mentioned, we've got 102 goals for the season so far. They've come from 18 players, James. I'd like you to name them in order of goals scored, please.
Do you want to just name the 4 that haven't?
Well, I tell you what, that's interesting in itself. So aside from the goalkeepers, Paul, there's 7 members of the first team who haven't yet scored for Celtic this season. You want to have a quick crack at naming them?
Starfelt scored a goal this season.
He scored 2 goals.
So he has. Carter Vickers.
Yep.
Right, okay.
He's one.
Right, now I'm having to think about guys on the bench.
Ralston scored yet this season?
Nope.
So you're
he has against Hearts, but he wasn't allowed.
Tony Ralston, Bernaby, if I made him up.
No, that's correct.
Bernaby, is it Ralston?
So you talking Kobayashi and stuff like that as well?
Edeguchi,
Iwata, Kobayashi.
I'll give you Iwata and Kobayashi.
Edeguchi.
Yeah. Don't count him, he's off-ski.
McCarthy.
And there's one more that you've missed, but you mentioned him a second ago.
Bertie Auld.
He's not scored. Alistair Johnson. The 7 are Carter Vickers.
Give him a chance, man.
Carter Vickers, Alistair Johnson, Bernaby, Kobayashi, Ralston, McCarthy, Iwata, and there's obviously 3 of those guys are brand new in the building. Kyogo, as we know, is top scorer on 22. There's quite a gap before the second scorer. Do you know who that would be, James? Abada, who's got 10 goals. Then you've got Jota and Maeda, both on 9. Giakoumakis was on 9. And then after that, it's 6, 5s, 4s and 3s and all that kind of stuff. I've broken it down, though, in terms of forwards, midfielders and defenders. And as you would expect, so the forwards at Celtic absolutely, pick up the heavy lifting there. Kyogo, Abada, Jota, Maeda, Giakoumakis, now departed, James Forrest, Haksabanovic and now O have scored 68 of Celtic's 102 goals. Then into your midfield, they've scored 20, and the defence have added 9. That includes 3 from Greg Taylor, who's found his shooting boots, and then 5 own goals. So the pleasing thing from Ange's point of view, though, is that as much as Kyogo's hitting the big numbers in 22, you're very confident in a Celtic side's ability to score from anywhere across the park.
Yeah, they're talented footballers, but they know the system. They know where they need to be. Was it that game against Motherwell or the game before where there was balls getting flashed out across the box and no one was there? We should have been 3 up in the first 10 minutes. And I think it's as close as I've seen this season to Ange reading any kind of a riot act. It's like, we're playing the football that we play. You need to be there. So in this kind of that was first kind of 10 games of the season or whatever it was. They know they've taken on the message. They need to be in their positions. They know the game very well, and with that, you get the goals. Greg Taylor's not in the edge of the 18-yard box by mistake. He knows that's his place to be. That's why he's getting his chance. Yeah, and I think it's just a matter of time before we do see Alistair Johnson get his first goal for the club. The one interesting stat as such is that Callum McGregor's only got 2 goals for the season, which it very much shows his evolution as a player, Paul. He is now absolutely a defensive midfielder, a number 6 to use the modern term. And back in the day, if Callum McGregor was only getting 2, you might be, slightly concerned. But his game has changed so much that you're happy for him to chip in with a couple of goals here and there, and obviously a very important goal against Aberdeen, as James mentioned. But this is just the new Callum McGregor.
a linchpin would be the word. He's very much in that role where he knows that he's almost, and he's captain. He starts the ball, he gets it, he wins it, he plays it out. He can have it. He's not afraid to have a shot. Also, he's missed a lot of the season both from injury. The chunk before Christmas. But yeah, he's a different player from the fresh-faced cheeky wee boy that came in when he did. But I think he's such an important player, and actually he dictates the tempo of the game. And it's his role is different because he has. I'd say he's evolved as a player. He's a better player than he was.
Yeah.
And everyone has their role in the team, and that's what he's been asked to do.
He's one of those guys where you, to a huge extent, you notice him when he's missing. He has been a wee bit unlucky with some recent injuries, and Celtic managed to get by that tricky spell. Matt O'Reilly stepped into number 6, but when Callum McGregor came back into the team, in fact the Aberdeen game was the first one where he scored the winner, you do see how crucial it is to all things good about this Celtic team. Final question in this section before we move on. So we've got 13 league games left, we've got a League Cup final coming up in a couple of weeks' time, and we've got at least one more Scottish Cup game, but potentially 3, so potentially 17 games left to play overall. As I say, we're on 102 goals after 36 games. Do you lads want to hazard a guess at how many goals you think we'll finish on?
102 now.
102 right now.
150.
I mean, taking it as, we've played 36 games, we've got around about half of that left to play. So yeah, if we keep going in the way we're going, 150 would be a hell of a number though, wouldn't it?
It'd be lovely to think. I just hope everyone stays injury free and can keep the momentum going. I don't think, I think Andrew just want to keep scoring and keep playing the way they're doing and keep pushing. He won't want to stop to the end of the season. So it'd be great if it can happen. It's what we're looking for.
Just give me a number. James says 150.
I'll go for 168.
168.
No, I'll go for 149.
149. playing it very, very safe. So we'll revisit that and we'll see how things fare in the
season.
Bring
me back in when it's 168, right?
Yeah. But what we are seeing at this moment in time is a Celtic team. James, the key word, we've used it several times now, is relentless, and that's exactly what Celtic are, and long may that continue. Okay, let's move on to this week's Mystery Celt, and we'll start with a quick reminder of last week's Mystery Celt for anyone who missed it. Paul, do you play this at home?
I do. I like it on your Twitter as well, so I usually do it. I've been okay with it.
How's your form? I was going to say, what's your strike rate?
It's been alright. It all depends on era, and it depends on sometimes if they've been UK based, I've been like, do you know what, they went there. That's, of course they went there after. But
what's your strongest era? I'll see if I can help you out with this week's.
90s to late 2000 to mid 2000s.
90s to that's quite a range. 90s to mid 2000s. I might just have something for you for today, but we'll get to that. So just to remind you of last week, so clue number 1, since leaving Celtic I've gone on to play against the club in European competition. Clue number 2, I have dual citizenship and could have played for Ukraine where my father was born. And clue number 3, my squad number at Celtic was once worn by Lee Griffiths. The answer, of course, was the Great Dane James Eric Sviatchenko. Your thoughts on Sviatchenko's time at Celtic?
Probably the nicest man in football. Too nice for a centre half.
Effie Ambrose is the nicest man in football.
Second nicest man in football.
Yeah.
Just didn't have quite that little bit that we need. I thought he was a good player, and he's obviously gone on to. Is it Michelin? He's with captain and now. Yeah. So he's a respected footballer, and he was good, not great. Is probably the best way. Lovely guy. Didn't really see him leaving when he left. I thought there was more to come from him. Maybe he's the kind of guy, if he'd come in and under Ange's structure, could have coached to be a bit more from him, but I don't know if he'd get a fair crack of the whip. But yeah, I liked him when he was here and wish him all the best. Yeah, in terms of his kind of the stats around him as such at Celtic, so he signed for the club in January 2016 at the very tail end of Ronnie Dyla's time at the club. He played a substantial number of games under Brendan Rodgers, very much part of the side that won the Invincible treble in 2016-17, but he then struggled in general to really establish himself under Rodgers. He eventually returned to Michelin, so that's where we signed him from. That's where he returned. In January of 2018, he initially returned on loan and then they made it permanent. But overall at Celtic, he lifted 2 leagues, 2 League Cups and 1 Scottish Cup. He's quite an interesting guy, and as you say, James, maybe too nice to be a proper kind of cutthroat centre-half. Bit of a scholar, quite a smart guy.
Very much. I mentioned his dad in the clues. His dad was an artist born in Kharkiv in the Ukraine, and he comes from that kind of creative family like yourself, Paul. We'll maybe get to that. I read, interestingly, that he's quite a deep thinker, and throughout his career he's always worked with a mental coach, not to be confused with mental coaches, which is what you get sometimes at different levels in Scotland, but quite unique, Paul, in terms of footballers to take that kind of approach.
You know, the kind of intellectual footballers. You don't get that many. You don't get too many of them. They also talk like Pat Nevin as one, and Socrates as well. Yeah, deep thinkers. Cantona said he was a fan of Rimbaud, and they sent him a Rambo DVD, a Rambo video. So he was quite a big quiet guy, Sviatchenko. I like a big stopper, a big hardy stopper. That's what I like, and he didn't really fit into that mould, but he did his job at Celtic, and he'll go away with a part of a great side.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think he's kind of well liked, well respected, and obviously he came back to Celtic Park with Midtjylland in the very early days of Ange's reign. So Midtjylland beat Celtic, I think 3-2 in aggregate in a Champions League qualifier back in the day. Beaton gets sent off, James. Big surprise.
Yeah.
I mean, see if you want to do well as a footballer in Europe, just play for Celtic sometime, anytime, and then come back and play as with your new team. You win.
Yeah, there's a lot of guys that have
it's the greatest atmosphere in the world, and then win it, and then walk away. Aye.
Good for your Instagram. Okay, so let's move on to this week's Mystery Celt. Last week we made things a bit more interesting for the listeners at home, and the first 10 people who replied with the right answer to last week's Mystery Celt on Twitter have each now been sent a link for a month completely free of the Celtic Exchange Plus. This week we'll do it all over again, so if you head to our Twitter page right now, you'll see the clues posted there as a pinned tweet, and again, the first 10 with the correct answer will be gifted that free month subscription. Are you ready for this week's Mystery Celt? Clue number 1. I signed for Celtic for £350,000.
Martin Hayes.
The striker.
I can't tell you
Fine,
that.
Okay.
Do you not know how this works?
No, I do know, but I'm just chucking it out there. Martin Hayes type.
I think he was 400 and something.
It's not Martin Hayes. Clue number 2. I have 10 caps but no goals. For
Tony
Scotland.
For Scotland.
For Scotland, 10 caps, no goals.
350,000.
Derek White.
No. Hadn't seen Derek White on the radar anywhere for a long time, and caught a picture of him on Twitter with, was it Roy Aitken?
Peter Grant.
I think they were out golfing in Dubai or something.
350s. I don't think it's a. Okay, well, I'll go for the last one then, right?
Yeah,
So 10 caps for Scotland, no goals.
Sit tight for
Galloway.
the last clue. Not Mikey Galloway. Clue number 3. I've scored a goal in the Championship playoff final in England, so to win promotion at the Premier League, and I've also scored in the Champions League. So while the lads are having a wee think about that one, I want to give listeners a reminder of the additional content we provide over on the Celtic Exchange Plus. Among some special episodes we do with ex-players, coaches and journalists, we produce pre- and post-match podcasts for every Celtic game, and we'll have more of the same before and after Saturday's league clash with Aberdeen. If you haven't already done so, you can experience the Celtic Exchange Plus now, absolutely free with our 7-day trial. Simply visit thecelticexchange.com/sign up to get started and to enjoy all the additional content we offer to subscribers. We've got subscription levels there starting at just £1.50 a month, so if you enjoy what we do and want to hear even more from us across the week, then visit thecelticexchange.com/sign up now.
Phil O'Donnell.
Not Phil O'Donnell.
750. Pat McGinley.
Not Pat McGinley.
We're in the right area.
We're in that right area.
No, really.
Is he a striker? Can't give us a clue at all.
I can't give you any more. I'll give you a few
So,
more
was it-
seconds, lads. Just to buy you some time, the score is currently 3-2, Paul, to the panel.
Right.
So there's a bit of pressure
Okay.
to maintain that lead. Otherwise, I'm going to.
Championship final, played in the Championship playoff.
So one promotion.
I can see Miff screaming at his radio
Premier
now.
League.
Did he
Miff will get this.
You said he scored in the playoff final?
He scored in the playoff final, and he's also scored in the Champions League.
Oh, Champions League format. So it's in
10 caps for Scotland.
2000 Scotland.
He's buying too much time, lads. I'm
Is it
afraid
10
it's
caps
all
for
over.
Scotland?
Yeah, I told you that.
But you just giving us a recap. Let's have a wee. Why don't you talk about some of your Celtic Plus stuff?
Sorry, lads. I'm going to have to declare it. The score is now 3 each. Hard luck,
man.
Paul. But remember, at home, if you think you know the answer to this week's Mystery Celt and want to win a month free of the Celtic Exchange Plus, then simply reply to our pinned tweet at Celtic Exchange using the hashtag Mystery Celt.